I have waited long, long time to see someone come this far. I wonder, how much further will you go before it is done? Naughty timekeeper loves his order, hates imperfections, sees them in everything he moves.
If your soul is at the cross, you will not be able to stop me. I've been down in the dirt, lost alone, been pushed around, beaten down. Got nothing left to lose, all hope is gone. Got buried deep underground. Can you save me?
I see your dirty face.
I tried to say something to me.
Truth is hard to swallow, so you break to God. Just as by the way you live a lie, live a lie, live a lie. And you tear when you mean you. I made mine. Because when I
boss is the key to locks you cannot see. Take your weapons, if you have the strength to wield them.
So as usual, when I go through my whole loadout, just pause the video as I go through everything to see everything I'm using in depth. I finally figured out on this melee build how to have the perfect balance. I got rid of Berserk, and I'm very happy that I did finally, because now I finally don't have to depend on annoying kill streaks. I mean, the melee chance to proc helps, but it still winds up being kill streak dependent to an extent. Only if I had a class mod that increased that skill node a bunch, so it became maybe a 50% chance every melee hit versus a 20% chance. But also when you're in co-op especially, the co-op is the biggest thing. Also sometimes there's waves of enemies that are like far apart from each other, where your berserk just goes away before the next wave happens, and then you have maybe a really long cooldown still going on your forge skill. So it just sucks. It really sucks. Now, Moxie I saw did a really OP, and I mean, it's definitely an OP build using both spamming of Forge skill, better, even more than this guy, and still maintains Berserk. And as a result, he is definitely doing way more damage than I am for both mobbing and bossing. And he's still, mostly invincible. Not as invincible as this version is, but I mean, for the most part, it's still invincible, especially with the invincibility node off Forge skills spamming. But my main thing is not that. I think it's a great build. My problem is personal, where I still hate it because, again, if you're in co-op, there might be enemy players that steal your kills and lead to your berserk ending anyway prematurely, which just always annoys me when it just ends and you have a really long cooldown on forge skills. They might even be taking kills to prevent your melees from getting your forge skill back even. That's true on this build. My point is like, it just compounds when you have berserk though. Like, I just hate having to maintain berserk constantly, especially in co-op and sometimes in solo too, because sometimes in solo, in solo, if I'm focused on a boss and it's just the boss is here, then there's really, sometimes I can maintain Berserk, but sometimes I can't because the chance is RNG. So sometimes it's just the RNG is not in my favor too, and I still lose it even soloing. And then, of course, if you're fighting waves of enemies, sometimes, again, the waves are too spread apart between fights, and then you just lose it on the way to the next wave or waiting for the next wave. So it's just, I hate the inconsistency of Berserk. I hate inconsistency when it comes to both damage and tanking, which is, again, why I didn't like Moxie's version, because it still relies on inconsistency. Its consistency is only in solo. And even, again, like, depending on how waves of enemies come, it still won't be entirely consistent. And I just always want consistency. That's why I'm always just a fan of just raw stats. I don't want kill streaks. I don't want combos. I don't want a crit-based crap. I don't want any of that. I just want raw stats, somehow boosting raw stats just to help my base tankiness for tanking and base damage for damage. Like, that's all I care about for the most part. That's why I come up with builds like this. But I love this version I made because now, like, my mobbing and my boss damage is slightly lower than when I had Berserk, but only slightly, actually, and that's in solo. The best part is I feel like it's superior when I'm playing co-op, because finally in co-op, almost all of the damage I do and the procs I activate just rely on me hitting things, and that's it. I don't have to rely on getting an RNG chance from the melee chance or getting an RNG chance from actually getting kills if a player for some reason gets the kill, or if I'm with a player and they pop I think Vex, who is it, Vex, that pops the damaging orbs on all the teammates, and then I'm pretty sure those count for her if you die. So then there's enemies getting killed around you that don't activate any of your kill skill stuff. It's so annoying. I hate kill skill stuff because I just hate, again, the relying on any sort of inconsistency in a build. So I love this version because we use the gun fire rate stat, which is great. I mean, increasing gun damage and gun fire rate on it is the best thing to do because there's no way to really help its melee damage a bunch. The only other one is Harbinger, but in order to get Harbinger, I have to literally waste like 5 points getting either lifesteal that I virtually never need, really never need now, or getting Berserk, which again defeats the whole purpose and would still be mostly useless if I don't get the further buffs to Berserk, like they're seeing red and all that with it. So I give up Harbinger. I give up a little bit of melee damage and health, but I gain gun damage, more gun damage stacking and fire rate, which in turn helps me maintain the stored damage off melee more consistency. And by the way, another reason I wanted to leave Berserk is precisely because of how ridiculous the damage does become with Berserk and Groundbreaker stacking, because I just feel like that's going to get removed in the game anyway. The amount of damage you can stack eventually combining Berserk with Groundbreaker is insane. Like a lot of insane things in this game. So I just, for one, I feel like it's almost so insane it feels like cheating to me. I know it's not, and I'm not claiming players do it cheats. I'm just saying, to me, it's so stupidly overpowered that I don't even want to do it. And also because I just feel like, yeah, it'll get nerfed in the future, and I like to make builds where I'm more comfortable thinking either all or most of what they rely on will not get nerfed in some way later on. This one I definitely don't. If anything, this build is almost certainly going to get buffed next week when they already announced they're going to be increasing melee damage builds. So this build's damage is just going to get even better anyway. So yeah, of course its weakness is still killing bosses, but I mean I kill them way faster now than I used to. Like this boss took like 9 or 10 minutes, honestly, for like a pure red tree onslaughter Amon. If you don't really use Berserk stacking or something, it is an insanely long fight. So I feel like this is a much more tuned build finally, to where it's like, okay, I use some of the blue, a lot of the red, but split it between, and now go multiple trees in red. And now I can finally, like now I rely on Molten, whatever it's called, Slam, with the one that uses stored damage. That one's so good if I'm not going to use Berserk, because the damage it deals is not just raw damage, it's stored damage, so it also can unleash quite a lot of damage. And then my Groundbreaker activates off that too. And then I use the... Now, the crit thing I use is mostly useless. I do have a mostly useless skill point in here. I forgot what it's called, the one that gives crit chance and crit damage, which I don't really rely on crits hardly at all anyway. I do it just so that I can get the melee hits decreased forge skill cooldown, because it gets boosted to 10% with melee. And since I have infinite onslaughter and I'm using infinite Fellfrost, every melee hit becomes 2 melee hits. So even though I don't use the legendary Amon class mod to give you an extra forge skill and increase your forge damage, I don't care that much, because a big chunk of the damage from it is stored damage that wouldn't get boosted by that anyway. And I already use Fellfrost with infinite onslaughter. Like, I prefer my purple class mod because that's what allows me to have infinite onslaughter. Again, I hate consistency. I know on Moxie's version, he uses Pyroclast, at least for mobbing, to help him maintain it. Once again, it is a solo augment, because if you're in teams and teammates are getting kills, you're not going to be maintaining the skill duration as much, so you will lose Onslaughter more often when you're in teams. And I like consistency for both solo and co-op. I like balanced, consistent builds. That's always what I'm a fan of, is a build I can take anywhere, have it be good anywhere, no inconsistency at all for just ease of mind and just casual play style. That is and a tank, an infinite tank too. That is the perfect build in my view for my play style. And what I tried to design is show to people here for people who have similar interests. And yeah, Moxie's his hammer Amon, melee onslaughter and Amon, he doesn't have infinite onslaughter. Instead, he uses now with caffeine with a triple bypass mod like a lot of players do. And that's great and all, but again, you still have a lengthy cooldown for it every time you lose it. because you have to activate the triple bypass 3 times. Yes, it's still, I'm not saying it's still not bad. I'm just saying, again, just to activate 3 rep kits is already a few seconds just for the animation. And then you still don't get it back instantly. It still drops to like a 5-6 second cooldown. So overall, you're still waiting 10 seconds between each onslaughter. And that's assuming, again, you have all 3 of your rep kits ready to go, which usually you will. If you have a mini one, you definitely want a mini one for the lowest cooldown on it. But again, it relies on kills to get extras during combat, and that may not always be true, or you might use them. So I mean, another reason, especially if you're in a boss fight and you can't, and Pyroclast doesn't help you maintain your duration all the time, then your onslaughter might go away before you're able to get all your rep kits back to activate it, almost instantly again. And again, I just don't like the inconsistency there sometimes. I'd still, you notice I actually use now with caffeine on this build. Later on after this video, I got a better rep kit. I've been looking for an order rep kit with accelerator on it and a mini one with low cooldown too. I finally found it after this video, and it definitely helped reduce the cooldown. Now, with just that, even without triple bypass, obviously the best would be triple bypass with accelerator and a mini version of it, but that's obviously asking a lot. I know I can get it, but who knows when that'll ever happen. In the meantime, I will take this purple rep kit order one that has 2 charges that came with accelerator and also came with lifesteal for what it's worth. So if my shield ever even is breached, now I have even more health regen combined with a thrill, since my rep kit's healing me also now give me lifesteal, which is great. But the most important thing is that it has a low cooldown, it's an order kit, and it has accelerator on it. So now when my onslaughter is gone completely, I almost always have those 2 charges no matter what's going on in a fight. And then I can just pop them both immediately and get onslaughter back within, again, like around 10 seconds, which is low enough. The reason I use that, you may be wondering again, why do I use it if I can maintain it forever? Because there's so many stupid load screens in this game that force you to wait through your whole cooldown on your skill constantly. I think it's dumb. It shouldn't exist. But like when I'm farming a boss, especially in co-op, and some super DPS build player is just, one-tapping the boss over and over and over again, and we have to keep going through a load screen over and over and over again, I'm always losing my onslaughter and having it go back to 50 seconds, and it's so freaking annoying. The amount of load screens that force you back to like a 50-second cooldown. I don't know why it doesn't reset the skill rather than reset the cooldown. That is like the worst thing it could do. So that's why I decided, you know what, I'm going to give up a little bit of DPS on the build, give up one of my melee passives just to get that back because for the convenience. But the thing is, I still want to keep the action skill duration build, because not ever having to lose onslaughter, period, not ever even having to have a moment when I have to activate a rep kit, wait at least a few seconds to get it back when some sort of craziness might be happening in the fight. The fact that never happens is another key to making just the perfect Amon tank in my view, because infinite onslaughter is just infinite invulnerability for the most part. But even more so now in this build, I can't spam my fort skill as much as like Moxie's version. But you see, I actually still can spam it quite often, which is why I slapped the invulnerability buff on it too. That makes me even more invincible. Also, last thing, if you saw my shield, I'm not using the onion anymore. That's right, because I found this ridiculously OP energy shield. It has turtle combined with shield capacity on it. I didn't know you could get both of those. I don't know if this might be the first shield I've seen it on. And I've looted a lot of shields and a lot of armor. I'm always paying attention to that stuff, and this was almost a perfect roll. It would have been perfect if it had shock resist too instead of frost resist, because shields are weak to shock, so then that would be the perfect counter to that too. But I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to complain. This is almost a perfect energy shield for durability. And it makes me wonder, can I get the same on armor? Because I had a purple armor that I think had turtle, but it didn't have shield capacity, but it had something tank related. It was like ablative for like elemental resist combined with turtle on a purple armor shield. And it had a base like 17 or 18k armor. I have it here actually. It's in my inventory still. And it gives me about 26,000 or 28,000 armor on this Amon build, you know, with my skill notes boosting it too. And specialization boosting it. So you compare that to like my onion shield gives me about 16,000 armor versus that purple armor giving me about 28,000. That in turn gives me a lot more regen because my onslaughter regens my armor by a percentage based amount. So the more you have, the more you regen. But I determined ultimately that that onion was better because of the 2-second constant invulnerability it provides. But not anymore on this onslaughter, dude. After I found that energy shield, and I also figured out this build to start using my forge skill with the 6-second invulnerability on it quite often too, I realized, dude, I'm actually even tankier. And you can see it in this video and compare it to my one with the onion. I mean, I was still invincible with the onion, don't get me wrong. It's just now I can tell I'm even tankier now because of this energy shield. You just have to do the math. Like, you take that my armor, 28,000 armor versus 57,000 energy shield here. And that armor one had corrosive resist, but even so, like, my shield doesn't have shock resist, which would be the best version. But still, compare that. You have like 28,000 on the armor. It gives you 25% damage mitigation. So let's just do 1 in 4 of like 30 is what, like 7-ish? Well, 28, yeah, it's 7. So if you want to just boost it, then that goes from 28,000 armor to really about like 35,000 for an energy shield, since that 28,000 is 1/4 damage mitigation. But that's actually being generous because I'm pretty sure that's not how much damage mitigation it gives you. Like 25% damage mitigation doesn't mean you take 1/4 damage from everything. Because I don't know how it's calculated, but I think it's all additive and it just gets reduced over time. So 25% less damage in this game is more like half that, like 12% from what I've seen. But we're just going to assume for argument's sake, that is even accurate. Even if it's accurate and gives you the full 25%, like literally you do take 25% less damage from every hit in the game. Well, that still just brings it up from 28,000 to, you know, about 35,000. Add the 15% corrosive resist to its weakness to mitigate its weakness, then maybe, I don't know. Once again, let's be generous. It's probably not this much, but let's just say it equates to like having a 40,000 energy shield then. Well, even then, 40,000 on the armor equivalent to an energy shield is obviously still much less than a 57,000 energy shield. So, and the energy shield recharges faster. Now, it doesn't have, if I get hit, of course, it reduces the recharge rates. But still, when it does recharge, it's recharging faster, and I get overshield to further help with that. But that's really not the biggest thing. The biggest thing that helps me regen is not my armor segments or energy shield regen. It's just Onslaughter. Onslaughter is the biggest form of the regen. So going from like 40,000 up to 57,000, which increases not only my base amount of, you know, durability substantially, but my base amount of armor or of shield regen off Onslaughter is just definitely better, and I can tell. And that just, like the onion, it's obviously even less armor. Now, it has that invulnerability, but here's the thing. I already gain invulnerability now through spamming my forge skill more often than I used to. And the weakness to the onion is the fact that, yeah, it's great. It's still a great shield. But the one problem I noticed with it on my tank builds on Amon is I could get that armor dropped instantly and go to health instead of armor much more often from just big honking hits in this game. Because you'll get hit, especially in boss fights, you will sometimes just get hit with something that just does such a crazy amount of damage that it will rip off that entire armor bar immediately. And yeah, you'll still get your 2 seconds of invulnerability, but it doesn't work like every hit's just going to rip off at most one segment. No, you will have a hit that rips off all 4 of your segments simultaneously. And then you'll just get 2 seconds still of invulnerability. You won't get 8 seconds. You'll still get the 2 seconds. Now, because of Onslaught are constantly regenning me, and it regens fast enough to get up to another segment for another segment of invulnerability. Again, the Onion Shield is still great. It's still better than almost any other purple shield you'll find to slap on an aim and melee tank build. Still the best shield for the most part because of the Onslaughter combined with the invulnerability stacking. But once you just get your shield up to the capacity I have it now, it's just better because it's like the amount of extra regen I get from that is way more than the Onion. And the fact that it just has so much higher base durability means I no longer have to worry as much about my health getting immediately breached off a huge hit, for instance. So now it has reached the point where it is superior despite Onion's invulnerability buff on it. So, yeah, I have to say it. When it comes to using a shield or armor in this game, I know there's health builds in this game, like Vex is ridiculous. That I think is ridiculous because she can essentially become immortal too with it. But yet she's not supposed to be a pure tank, I feel like Amon would, and yet she's able to do it. But that's because of the ridiculous leech healing. She's like the technician in freaking Outriders. The freaking endgame leech healing just makes her completely immortal, just like for the technician in Outriders, so that he becomes essentially tankier than the Devastator, who was supposed to be the tank in the game, which in my view is stupid. And I always thought the technician's leech healing needed to be nerfed a little because it's just ridiculous how much he gets. The same applies to Vex's ridiculous bleed health build, but that's neither here nor there. The point is like if you're going to use shield or armor, then yeah, eventually a purple energy shield with turtle and shield capacity is the best thing you can get. But again, I have to wait and see if I can roll armor. If I can get an armor roll that also has turtle combined with shield capacity, because you can get both of them on armor too. You can get armor with turtle on it, and you can get armor with shield capacity. But I've never seen both on armor. But I also never saw that on an energy shield until recently. And apparently it does roll an energy shield, so it makes me think if it can roll both on an energy, you can probably get both to roll an armor. Can you imagine rolling both those on an armor and with corrosive resist on this kind of Amon tank? Like, I hope to find that at some point because that will make this guy even tankier. So I look forward to that one day.